When talking about Latin America, most of us think of the many colors that it offers, the many foods, and the wonderful people that live in these countries. However, something that we normally don't take into account when learning about Latin America is its history, and more specifically, the colorism and racism that still occurs to this day. And while it doesn't necessarily always concern the United States because we ourselves have our own problems, it is something that I believe is important to understand, especially when we try to imitate some of the things that these countries do and try to help the people who come from these countries and immigrate into the United States. So today I will go ahead and cover what colorism is, its history, specifically in Mexico, and then expand its effect in Latin America overall as a territory. So, as far as the history of Mexico and how this has been an impact, so according to Kinsey, the preference of skin color has a root in the history of Mexico when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Mexico in 1518. This is when the native population started to decrease, as well as the Spaniards getting mixed with Native American individuals. And so this created the subdivision that we now know as mestizos. This is what later on led to the mixture of more and more races, and so there was a hierarchy of social status because of your skin color and your roots, basically. So this is as far as it goes. It's literally in the roots of the country. Just like in the United States, racism has been integrated ever since we know, just because of slavery. The same thing happens here. And according to the LA Times, if slavery was the original sin of the United States, colonialism was Latin America's. And so that is why this whole idea of colorism has been a huge deal ever since the beginning. It is something that Latin American countries, not only in Mexico, have had to face for many years, and in this case, ever since they were existed, they were founded upon these beliefs, and so it is something that has stayed with the culture, unfortunately, for many, many years. So, what are some of the disadvantages? And while knowing the history, this does allow us to understand where this comes from, but we still need to take into account now how these effects of colorism, affect individuals in Latin America. So, as stated by Pew Research, the majority of Hispanic adults have been interviewed in this case, and about 62% said that a darkened skin color would hurt the Hispanics' ability to get ahead in the United States today, at least a little. And a similar 59% say that having a lighter skin color helps Hispanics get ahead in general, not just in the United States. So this is something that is not only in the United States, as this same research later on mentions, that Latinos, out of 3,375, most of them supported the idea that if they had a lighter skin color, they would have a better advantage in society in general. So what does this say about our culture? Not only in the United States, but also just Latinos and Latin Americans. It says that there is racism within our own community. And so, by definition, colorism is the prejudice and discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically amongst the people of the same ethnic or racial group. So, in regards to this whole idea that your skin color doesn't matter, it is not true. If we were to look at new novelas or dramas that are laid out, normally the people who are in power are light colored Latinos. They're not brown, they're not black. And while there could be the argument that Latinos come in all shapes and forms, it is important to understand that brown Latinos have had to face racism and discrimination more than anyone else in the same group. And as stated by the Washington Post and Galvan Rodriguez, she feels, and she does state, that her lighter features are seen as good and that someone's status is based on their skin color. So this just proves how much people who are colored in Latin America struggle. It is not something that is only happening in the United States. So today I went ahead and covered the history of colorism, where it started in Latin America, specifically in Mexico, and later on I discussed how it affects other individuals and in what aspects of it. So, as we covered the history, the impact, and the reasons as to why this is a thing in the first place, it is important to understand and keep in mind whenever visiting these countries to support everyone and treat everyone fairly, regardless of their skin color.